Okay, this one's been on the list for a while, and I thought, given the fact that Maleficent came out this week, I'd do something you don't like doing, as always, and that is basically doing our verses based upon movies that are possibly coming out. I'm not a puppet. Anyway, I thought this would really well for the situation, and plus it plays into the fact that we have hardcore violence and then niceties, comedies, family movies, just complete polar opposite the week after, which is not going to play into that next week, actually, for a change. Not exactly. So,
Not to mention that a large portion of your YouTube channel is devoted to Disney. So
yes, exactly. This is also a big one because obviously my name is Sir Owen Disney for a reason. And we are going to pit two very beloved Disney classics against each other today in uh, congruent with the movie coming out this week. So that's the reason why we're doing this one today of all days. So we're going to see what happens when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs faces off against Sleeping Beauty. AJ, take it away.
obviously the challenge was fun. You had told me that I needed to do two classic animated Disney movies.
Yes.
The question was which ones. I know you wanted to throw like Cinderella in there.
Yeah, I wanted Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast both in there.
Bambi had come to mind.
Yeah.
But then obviously it hit me that there are two animated Disney movies that are pretty much the same movie.
Yeah.
You start with the innocent girl that has the overbearing people in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually she has a curse of sorts in Snow White that it's put on her that makes her seem dead, and she has to fight off an evil witch while other people have to fight off a witch for her.
Yes.
Because she is unconscious, but and she is saved by true love's first kiss.
Exactly.
So, yes, and pretty much everything comes to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
We start with, another thing to have in common is they both got Oscar nominations for score.
Yes.
Nowadays they probably would have gotten more, but back then it was only score. We're going to start with Sleeping Beauty, which, if you watch the videos often, I pretty much already talked about this movie a couple of days ago.
Yep.
Or in real time a couple of minutes ago.
Time travel.
This is the story that we all thought we knew, apparently. It is the story of... It's also worth noting that while when it first came out, some people considered Sleeping Beauty a ripoff of Snow White.
Yep.
Basically Disney ripping off itself. Well, there is another movie that we will probably never talk about that is a blatant ripoff of Sleeping Beauty as well. So, in many different ways, this will sound totally familiar to you. So, Princess Aurora is born, and she is basically destined to marry Prince Philip. And Prince Philip is disgusted with this idea. He walks up to her crib, and he's like, "A girl, I will never do that." And then as the story continues, the three good fairies come down, who are rightfully named Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. And they are basically bestowing on her, happiness and beauty and all that. Well, Fauna goes to grace her with, we never know what. I'm sure it's obvious, but she never gets to say it. Before the witch Maleficent appears. And Maleficent is one of the most evil Disney villains of all time. Because she is just pure... There are no redeeming qualities. She is just pure evil. So, the way she's supposed to be. So, she decides, out of just being evil, as far as this movie is concerned, she places a curse on the infant Aurora that... On her 16th birthday, she is going to prick the tip of her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and fall into a death-like sleep forever. And the only thing that can bring her back is experiencing true love's first kiss. So the king panics, and the good fairies come up with an idea to take her away and basically take a human form and get rid of their magic and get rid of their wands and everything, and just raise her as a normal girl by themselves, away from everything, so she'll be hidden from all the evil. And the king takes the job of burning all of the spinning wheels and taking all the possible precautions. So they change her name to Briar Rose, and she grows up with them. And everything is all good until her 16th birthday comes. And Maleficent's little minion, the crow, or whatever he is, happens to land on the windowsill of the cottage and find her when he overhears the fairies talking. And thus that plot begins. But of course we have the side plot where the somewhat classic misunderstanding plot, where Sleeping Beauty's plot Sleeping Beauty's plot is so simple, it doesn't need to be solved. It's solving itself, and the problem is that people don't realize that. Because she's fallen in love with this stranger in the middle of the woods, not realizing that the stranger is Prince Philip. We as an audience know that, but she doesn't. And the problem with this is, when she goes back, she learns that she can't be with this stranger she's met in the woods because she's betrothed to Prince Philip. The plot is that simple, and they just have no idea. So, yeah, it is kind of a charming plot, but at the same time, the one problem I've kind of had with Sleeping Beauty is, first off, can we all agree that when you look at the classic Disney movies, like Cinderella and Pinocchio and Bambi and Alice in Wonderland and Snow White, Fantasia, Sleeping Beauty is kind of on the Lady and the Tramp, you can throw in there too, 101 Dalmatians, all of them. Sleeping Beauty's kind of at the bottom of this list. It's more of like, you can see where the critics of 1959 were getting the idea. It did seem like a bit like Disney was rehashing Snow White a little bit. Because it's 75 minutes long, and they do a lot to cram in that 75 minutes. It kind of feels like the plot is so simple that they can't really sustain 75 minutes. We have this one scene that's like 5 minutes long, that's about Aurora's father and Philip's father talking about this. And it feels like it's only there because we have to fill in some time. Even though we do have the funny scenes with the jester that's just kind of drunkenly falling around and who fills his, little guitar with the wine and all that. The visual gags that make Disney stand out. One of the many things it became famous for. But that's not to completely undermine the great things that are in this movie, because there is a reason it's still, even if I think it's one of the like really low tier Disney movies, it's still one of the most popular. One of the big appealing factors is the characters of the three fairies and how they handle their way about things, like when they finally bring the wands back, and you get this scene that kind of is reminiscent of the Sorcerer's Apprentice scene in Fantasia. There's a scene where Fauna's trying to bake the cake, and she reads teaspoon as tisp and has no idea what it means, and it says, eggs folded under, so she just takes the eggs still in their shell and just puts the dough over them. Them making the dress, and the constant back and forth between Flora and Merryweather about whether the dress should be pink or blue. I want to stop and say something here real quick. I don't know how many people have heard this, and I don't know that I fully, somewhat, I don't know that I fully buy it completely, but fan theories are always fun, and there is apparently a rather popular fan theory behind the character of Flora. This theory is that Flora is Cinderella's fairy godmother. They're the same character. Because what the way the theory goes is you'll notice the setting that Sleeping Beauty is set in. It seems a lot more farther back in time. And Cinderella seems a little bit more into the future after Sleeping Beauty, even though Cinderella came like over a decade before. And I guess people see a similar personality in her and a similar appearance. She obviously seems older in Cinderella because so much time has passed. And because so much time has passed, Flora is like, I don't know how fairies die, but I guess by this point, Fauna and Merryweather are gone. And obviously, Fauna was always there, but the banter was always between Flora and Merryweather. There seemed to be more of a thing going on with them, and Fauna was just kind of the third one. So there's the theory that obviously she's grown older and everybody that was in Sleeping Beauty is dead now except for her. And you'll notice that even though Flora was all about pink and Merryweather was all about blue and that was their big fight, it would be in honor of Merryweather after she's dead that in Cinderella she wears blue, because on the inside of her robe you can see pink, where she wouldn't give that up. It's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
But I guess it just depends on how you feel about that. Now, obviously, one of the best thing about the movie is the character of Maleficent, which you can say many ways. Sometimes they say Maleficent, sometimes they say Maleficent. I don't know. It's spelled like Maleficent.
Maleficent.
And that's what they say in the new movie entirely. Not that the new movie is trustworthy. But, anyway. It is very, like I said, when you look at stuff like the new movie, you realize how unsugar-coated the original Sleeping Beauty is. And it's really nice to just see, in what would normally be considered a kid's movie, a 100% evil villain whose actual death is what they seek. There was no, and she also kind of gave me the vibe that this was like 2 years before 101 Dalmatians. I kind of got a hint that Maleficent was kind of a future inspiration for Cruella de Vil a little bit.
I can see that.
Who also is a 100% evil villain.
Yes.
In the best way possible. But there's, and of course, the ending. The magnificent ending with the dragon, where this movie totally reaches its peak and becomes that movie where, oh yeah, I can see why people love this now and why it's so popular. Even if the dragon is dispatched alarmingly quickly. But the movie it's there long enough to make an impact with the movie itself. But the one thing I couldn't get past, is how similar the ending feels to, the climax feels to The Wizard of Oz. Because you have the three magical side characters, the three fairies, as opposed to the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and the Lion. And you have the witch's castle, that the other, obviously, it's not the girl this time, it's Philip that's in the castle. Because she's already pricked her finger by this point and is resting elsewhere. So the three of them are hiding back, and there's the guard there. The guard voiced by the same guy that did Fidget in The Great Mouse Detective. He's not credited, but you could tell easily. And it's just really this, it's not like the whole climax at all, it's just this particular scene. It felt very inspired by The Wizard of Oz. You almost expect the one guard to start chanting. His face is even green. But yeah, even though Sleeping Beauty has a lot of great elements to it, there's not really, until we get that big ending where Maleficent turns to the dragon, there's not really anything all that. The great thing about Disney's classic movies is how many memorable scenes they have. Like, they're just packed with them from beginning to end. We'll talk about that with Snow White very soon. Apart from the big ending, I don't think Sleeping Beauty is all that memorable, really.
the music?
I don't know. It is.
I mean, Snow White does have one of the most all-time classic Disney songs in history as well.
And it's often misquoted.
Yeah.
But regardless, yeah. Normally when I do this, I talk about 2 movies that I absolutely love. I don't know. Maybe, further down, Sleeping Beauty will grow on me a little more, but I've always thought of it as a less memorable, lower tier Disney movie that does pretty much, just kind of replicate Snow White's story a little bit. So we're basically going into the whole purpose of this video now, which is to talk about how outstanding Snow White is. Almost everybody, at least in their right mind, considers it the greatest animated movie of all time. The back of the DVD says that from the AFI. It's actually on the AFI list, if I remember correctly. The only animated movie on there, I think. And obviously, you would think, usually with any other genre, there'd be kind of, or any other style, there'd be kind of a reasonable doubt about the love for it because of being groundbreaking. Because when you think about all the love that Snow White has and how beloved it is, your first thought is to say, well, people just feel that way because it was the first animated movie ever. Well, not the case here. It's beloved not only because it's the first animated movie ever, and not only because there was absolutely nothing like it at the time. Like, at the time, this was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, you had, like, the little black and white shorts with Mickey and stuff like that, but this was a full hour and 24 minutes in color, and every single scene was something to behold. From the very beginning to the very end, from her singing inside the well to the dwarves around the glass casket. Almost every scene of this movie is etched in everybody's mind. Which is the exact opposite of what I was just saying about Sleeping Beauty. So, okay. I guess I'll go ahead and test this with you, actually. Apart from the opening scene where Maleficent places the curse, and apart from the scene at the end with the dragon, can you tell me off the top of your head a scene that's in Sleeping Beauty?
Not off the top of my head.
How many scenes can you tell me from Snow White?
Just hi-ho. All I gotta say is hi-ho right there.
Yes. As a kid, I thought It's Off to Work We Go was the whole song.
Yeah.
They sing that lyric once. Obviously, because it never made sense to me, because I was saying, why are they singing It's Off to Work We Go when they're coming home? The lyric is, it's home from work we go. When they go to work, the one time when they leave the cottage, when Snow White's left alone with the old woman, is when they say it's off to work we go. And we only hear it once. And for some reason, that got etched in my head that was the whole song. So, it makes sense now.
Yes.
It's home from work we go is exactly what they're doing. So, the great thing about it is, obviously since it was the first movie, it probably looks a little, like maybe modern teenagers nowadays will point out how kind of, a little dated the animation looks a little bit. Like, there's some times where it just kind of stops, and some of the transitions are off, and those scenes, but that's the thing, though, is, what's so great about it is how, to me, it's not that the animation is dated, it's just the movie just has such a significant look.
Yeah.
Like those, I really, really love those shots, and there's a lot of them in the movie where you might think it seemed like too much to animate at the time, but it really is just it's its own thing, and you've never seen anything like it, where it's like Snow White is inside a painting that's not moving at all, and she's the only thing moving in it. Like the particular shot when the queen sends the huntsman after her, and the very shot fades in. We don't see, like, the huntsman approach or anything, or we don't see him, like, come out of the woods, or he doesn't have some kind of big reveal. The scene just fades in, and it's just, like, a still picture of him standing by a tree just watching her. And only she is moving in the shot. And it's this really... I just think it really gives it a memorable feel, the way it's animated. And the fact that it had never been done before this, and it has such a distinct style even now,
Oh, yeah.
with everything that animation has gone through, is insanely impressive. And it also goes to a lot of really dark places, especially with the Queen. One thing, there are two scenes in this movie that always freaked me the hell out as a child. One's obvious. One was when the Queen first morphed into the old woman and she does the reveal of her face. To any child, that is frightening. But a great thing that they do about that is the creatures that, the woodland creatures that always follow Snow White around, like the deer and the birds and the turtle that's always lagging behind. They basically act as the kids in the movie. Like, the birds run and hide when the kids would be, when something is possibly scary or threatening is happening.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, it's really simple now, but back when you're a kid, it's frightening, is the scene where, actually, no, it's still a little frightening now. When the Queen is going through her dungeon, and we're seeing, like, the leftover skeletons, and there's a cell there, and right here, outside the cell, is a pitcher of water, and it's a skeleton that was reaching for it when it died.
Yeah.
And then she just crushes its bones down, just out of spite. The Evil Queen is another one of those extremely memorable villains. Another great piece of animation is the magic mirror.
Yes.
Because, like I said, they didn't have anything special to work with. It was just a lot of people drawing a lot. That's all it was. With Disney over their shoulder making sure it looked right. And the way the mirror works is it's almost like a 3D image. It's just a bunch of artists, like 62 artists, and they're all thanked in the beginning credits. It's just a whole, like, list after list of the names. It's just drawing two-dimensional pictures. But the way this magic mirror is animated makes it look like a 3D image as he is, like, hanging out in the back. And he's also eerie as all hell. But dark stuff aside, the best thing about this movie is just how constantly joyful it is when we're with Snow White and the dwarves. And the great thing is every dwarf has that distinct personality. Like not only do they have like the names that represent their personality, but they just have the look about them. They're animated that way, which explains Snow White sees their names on the bed but doesn't know which one's which when they walk in. But even though they've never introduced themselves and they're still kind of fearful of her, just because of how distinguished they are, Snow White knows all of their names just by looking at them and calls them and does like the roll call.
Yeah.
Now, and speaking of that, a lot of people kind of criticize the character of Snow White, and they say everything around her is what's great about the movie. She's just kind of there to make the events in the movie happen. I actually think Snow White is one of the more... I mean, I can understand where people say she's, you know, literally and figuratively two-dimensional. But I've always found her to be one of the more enchanting of the Disney princesses. And it's not in like a grating Aurora, constantly happy kind of way, but just like the character feels really genuine, especially with the voice actress that portrays her. Of course, you're enchanted immediately by that scene with the well, where she sings in the well. That scene is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. And this movie is just so joyful that it can do something, this magnificent thing where it takes something as minuscule as... We were talking about how simple Sleeping Beauty is, and how it didn't really do a lot with it. It just kind of was simple and then got to where it needed to be. Snow White is also really simple, but what they do with it is they take something as minuscule as washing before dinner. Because they want to kick her out, but then when she says, oh, but I can cook, and they get really happy, like, all right, you can stay, fine. So they're really excited they're finally going to have like a home-cooked dinner from Snow White. And she says before anybody eats anything, you have to go wash up. And something as simple as that, they turn into this magnificent, memorable 10-minute segment of of them just washing up. But it's one of the most memorable scenes of the movie. And then just all these images that are just etched into your brain forever. Like the old woman extending the red apple, or the thunderstorm, and just, and like I said, the extremely, extremely heartbreaking scene. Like I said, even though we know what's going to happen, we know she's not really dead, we know she'll have true love's first kiss, it's this terrible, devastating scene when she's in the glass coffin and the dwarfs surround her and they all think she's dead. Because you have, and especially the two we really focus on are Dopey and Grumpy, because Dopey is like smitten with her immediately. Does the thing where she kisses them goodbye when they're all leaving for work, and Dopey goes around the house 3 times so he can be kissed multiple times. And then Grumpy's the one that doesn't want her there and thinks she's no good, and she comes from the queen, and the queen is black magic, so she's evil, but then all she has to do is kiss and she's so lovely that she does everything she can to win Grumpy over. She's even, when she's, sadly, when she's taken over by the queen, she's actually making a pie that has Grumpy's name on it, just because she wants to win him over. That's all she wants. And then there's finally that nice scene where all she has to do is kiss Grumpy on the cheek, and he acts like he hates it, but then he does the smile, and it's, nowadays you'd think it'd be really cheesy, but it's still really heartwarming when you see Grumpy smile. So, yes, there's just, and yeah, obviously the musical numbers are actually memorable and great. Like I said, taking something minuscule as Whistling While You Work and turning it into one of Disney's most memorable songs.
One of the songs I cannot perform.
So, yes, there's just, and here's the thing, is when we do this, we have to watch so many movies, and sometimes it gets to be a little rough, even if the movies are good. Like, my favorite movie of the year right now is 2.5 hours of relentless, brutal violence.
Yes.
And even, like I said, even when the movies are good like that, it's always great to have movies like this that exist that are just an hour and a half of nothing but joy and happiness.
Exactly.
And it's, in every possible way, this is one of the first movies I think of when I hear the phrase movie magic.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has so many different meanings. Just how it just feels magical in its joy and happiness when you're watching it. And just the fact that it was made at the time that it was made. And how it has stood the test of time. 1937 was a long-ass time ago.
Yes.
And it was even honored with an honorary Oscar. It was 1 Oscar for Walt Disney and then 7 miniature Oscars.
Yes, that was awesome.
So, yes. When people say Snow White is one of the greatest movies of all time, there's not even the slightest ounce of exaggeration in it.
Nope.
So, I think that completes this.
Yeah, there was never a contest here, and I knew that before I even went into it. But I did think that this one needed to be done. Don't worry, we'll go back into Disney lore sometime sooner rather than later, I would say. Next week is going to be interesting. Something that was actually decided upon like days ago, literally. So that's going to be our verses coming up. And this month, since we're now in the month of June, I will say that we have a monstrous verses coming up towards the middle of this month. That,
not as big as the last one.
No. But it's pretty close. I think there's only one more left we could do even to top that one. And we'll talk about that next year. So, any parting words for this versus, AJ?
That's it.